Admiral Zorith flexed his 4 primary tentacles as he gazed out at the most magnificent sight in Kalaxian military history. 9,900 warships stretched across the void like a metallic constellation of death. Each vessel bristled with plasma cannons that could vaporize mountains, shield generators that could deflect asteroid impacts, and enough firepower to glass entire continents. Sir, Captain Vrex slithered up beside him, his scales practically glowing with excitement. The final surveillance reports from Earth have arrived. Zorith's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his species. Oh, this should be entertaining. Tell me, Vrex, what terrifying weapons have these humans developed since our last scan? Vrex activated his holographic display, trying desperately to suppress his own amusement. Well, sir, they've apparently upgraded from throwing rocks to throwing slightly more advanced rocks. They call them bullets, and they propel them using controlled explosions. Controlled explosions. Zorith's 8 eyes widened in mock terror. How absolutely primitive. What's next? Are they going to throw sharp sticks at our quantum-shielded hulls? Actually, sir, Vrex's voice quivered with barely contained mirth, they do still use sharp sticks. They call them bayonets. They attach them to their bullet-throwing devices. The bridge erupted in what could only be described as the Kalaxian equivalent of hysterical laughter. Zorith had to steady himself against his command console as his gelatinous form shook with amusement. By the 7 moons of Kalax, they're still in the Stone Age. Vrex, remind me again why the High Command insisted on sending nearly 10,000 ships for this conquest? Standard protocol for planetary invasion, sir. Though between you and me, Vrex leaned closer, lowering his voice to a conspiratorial whisper. I think 3 ships would have been overkill for these Earth creatures. Zorith activated the fleet-wide communication system, his voice booming across 9,900 vessels. Attention, warriors of the Kalaxian Empire. Today we face our most challenging opponent, yet a species that has mastered the art of making loud noises with metal tubes. The laughter from across the fleet was so intense it actually registered on the ship's vibration sensors. Seriously, though, Zorith continued, wiping a tear from his primary eye, try not to completely obliterate them in the first 5 minutes. The High Command wants some specimens for the zoo back home. It's not every day we find a species still using gunpowder in the Galactic Age. Captain Vrex pulled up the tactical display, showing Earth's pathetic orbital defenses. Sir, our quantum computers estimate total victory in approximately 17 minutes. That includes time for bathroom breaks. 17 minutes? Zorith shook his head in disbelief. That seems generous. What could possibly go wrong against a species that thinks metal tubes are advanced weaponry? Famous last words, as they say in the business. Begin the assault. Admiral Zorith commanded, his tentacles dancing across the control interface with practiced precision. Target their major population centers. Let's give these humans a proper introduction to Kalaxian hospitality. The first wave of plasma bolts screamed through Earth's atmosphere, painting the sky in brilliant shades of destruction. New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow all received their fair share of what should have been terrifying alien firepower. Zorith watched the tactical display with smug satisfaction as the energy signatures lit up like a festival of death. Sir, Captain Vrex's voice carried a note of confusion that made Zorith's scales ripple with concern. We're receiving unusual communications from the surface. Surrender demands, I assume. Zorith clicked his mandibles smugly. He played them through the bridge speakers. I do so enjoy the sound of defeated enemies begging for mercy. What came through the speakers next made every Kalaxian on the bridge question their understanding of basic psychology. Woohoo. Did you guys see that light show? That was awesome. The human voice was filled with excitement. Hey Martha, get the camera. The aliens are putting on a fireworks display. Zorith's 4 hearts skipped several beats. That can't be right. Replay that transmission. Oh man, this is better than the 4th of July. Another human voice crackled through. Kids, come outside. You're missing the best laser show in history. Captain Vrex's scales had turned a concerning shade of pale green. Sir, We're receiving thousands of similar transmissions across all targeted cities. The humans appear to be celebrating? Celebrating? Zorith's voice rose 3 octaves. They're supposed to be running in terror, screaming, hiding in their primitive shelters. The main view screen suddenly activated, showing a human face that was grinning from ear to ear. The creature was wearing what appeared to be a colorful hat with small explosions printed on it. "Greetings, space friends," the human said cheerfully, raising a cylindrical container that was fizzing at the top. "Welcome to Earth. Thanks for the light show. Name's Commander Riley, and on behalf of planet Earth, let me just say we've been waiting for you." Zorith stared at the screen in complete bewilderment. "Waiting for us? But we're here to conquer you, to enslave your species, to harvest your resources." Riley's grin somehow managed to get even wider. "Oh, we know. This is going to be fun. Hey, do you guys like pizza? We ordered about 10,000 pies, figured you might be hungry after your long trip." The bridge fell silent except for the sound of Kalaxian jaws dropping to the floor. "Sir," Rex whispered, his voice barely audible, "I'm beginning to think our intelligence reports might have been incomplete." Commander Riley raised his fizzing container toward the camera. "Welcome to the party, boys. Let's see what you've got." And that's when Zorith realized they might have made a tiny, insignificant, utterly catastrophic miscalculation. "You see, Admiral Zorith," Commander Riley continued, somehow knowing the alien commander's name despite never having met him, "we've been tracking your fleet for about, 3 months now. Really appreciate you taking the scenic route through the Andromeda sector. By the way, gave us plenty of time to prepare the welcome wagon." Zorith's tentacles began twitching uncontrollably. "How do you know my name? How did you detect our stealth approach? Our ships are equipped with quantum cloaking technology." Riley chuckled and took a sip from his fizzing container. "Quantum cloaking? Oh, that's adorable. You guys are still using Mark 7 quantum dampeners, aren't you? We cracked that technology back in 2019. My 12-year-old nephew could spot your ships with a decent telescope and some math homework." "That's impossible," Captain Rex sputtered. "Our surveillance showed you using primitive projectile weapons." "Oh, those old things?" Riley's eyes twinkled with mischief. "Yeah, we call that vintage cosplay. See, we figured if we kept pretending to shoot at each other with gunpowder and pointy sticks, any visiting aliens would assume we were harmless little primitives. Works every time." Zorith felt his confidence evaporating faster than water in a vacuum. But your cities, your infrastructure, it's all so basic." "Surface level, sure," Riley nodded agreeably. "Great camouflage, right? All the real good stuff is underground, or in orbit." Speaking of which, Riley pressed a button on what Zorith had assumed was a primitive communication device. The space around the Kalaxian fleet suddenly lit up like a deadly Christmas tree. "What in the name of the 7 moons?" Zorith gasped as thousands of previously invisible structures materialized around his ships. Massive orbital platforms, bristling with weapons that made his plasma cannons look like children's toys. Satellites the size of space stations. Defense grids that stretched across entire sectors. "Surprise," Riley announced cheerfully, "meet Earth's actual defense network. We call it the Welcome Mat. Pretty neat, huh?" Alarms began shrieking across every Kalaxian vessel as their sensors registered the massive energy signatures surrounding them. But before Zorith could issue any orders, his ships began behaving very strangely indeed. "Sir," Rex's voice cracked with panic. "Our vessels they're not responding to navigation commands." Zorith watched in growing horror as his perfectly organized battle formations began to scatter like leaves in a cosmic wind. Ships drifted helplessly in random directions, their engines sputtering and failing. "Oh, that!" Riley's voice carried a note of casual pride. "The electromagnetic nets, completely harmless to organic life, but absolutely murder on unshielded electronics. Funny thing about quantum technology, it's really sensitive to basic electromagnetic interference." "This is impossible," Zorith roared, his tentacles flailing in desperation. You're supposed to be primitive, Stone Age, barely capable of space flight. Well, Riley shrugged. That's what we wanted you to think. See, Admiral, humans have this funny habit of preparing for the worst-case scenario. We've been expecting visitors like you for decades. Science fiction movies, comic books, video games, we've been gaming out alien invasion scenarios since before your great-great-grandparents learned to slither. Captain Vrex stared at his instrument panel in disbelief. Sir, we're losing ships by the hundreds. Their formations are completely scattered. Riley raised his fizzing container in a mock toast. Welcome to Earth, gentlemen. Hope you brought your appetite because you're about to get served. Things went from bad to worse for the Kalaxian fleet in ways that defied all military logic and several laws of physics. Sir. Communications Officer Blexen's voice pitched higher than a soprano hitting a high note. Our AI systems are malfunctioning across the entire fleet. Admiral Zorith spun toward the communications station, his tentacles leaving stress marks on the deck plating. Malfunctioning how? They're laughing, sir. All of them. Our tactical computers, navigation systems, even the bathroom dispensers. They just keep displaying images of small Earth creatures with text overlays. On the main screen, Dr. Maya Patel's face appeared, her dark eyes sparkling with barely contained glee. Hello there, Admiral. Dr. Maya Patel, Earth's chief digital warfare specialist. Hope you don't mind, but we've uploaded a few thousand years' worth of human humor directly into your network systems. Zorith watched in mounting horror as his command display began showing pictures of small, furry Earth creatures with captions like "I can has invasion" and "such conquest. Very defeat. Wow. Your artificial intelligence systems are remarkably sophisticated," Dr. Patel continued, adjusting what appeared to be primitive glass lenses over her eyes, but they have one tiny flaw. They're logical. And humans, well, we gave up on logic sometime around the invention of pineapple pizza. Captain Vrex's scales had turned a sickly yellow color. Sir, the memes are spreading. Our quantum computers are trying to process paradoxical humor and getting stuck in infinite loops. But that's not even the fun part. Dr. Patel clapped her hands together. Wait until you see what Captain Morrison has been up to. As if summoned by her words, another human face appeared on screen. This one belonged to a man with graying hair and laugh lines that suggested he found the current situation absolutely hilarious. Captain Jake Morrison, Earth Orbital Sanitation Division. The man announced with a salute that looked more like a wave. Thanks for visiting our little corner of space. As a welcome gift, we're sending you some of our finest orbital debris. Zorith's confusion lasted exactly 3 seconds before his sensors detected several dozen objects hurtling toward his fleet at impossible velocities. Evasive maneuvers. He shrieked, but his ships were still trapped in the electromagnetic nets, drifting helplessly as chunks of what appeared to be genuine space junk slammed into their hulls with devastating precision. That's recycled communication satellites, old space station components, and about 40 years' worth of discarded lunch containers. Captain Morrison explained cheerfully. We call it kinetic recycling. Very environmentally friendly. A particularly large piece of debris, which appeared to be an ancient Earth television broadcasting device, punched clean through the hull of Kalaxian battlecruiser designation XJ-7. But wait, there's more. Dr. Patel's voice carried the enthusiasm of someone announcing a holiday sale. We've got a special delivery coming your way. Special delivery. Zorith's voice cracked worse than a teenager asking for his first date. The tactical display lit up with incoming missile signatures, but these weren't ordinary military projectiles. According to the sensors, they were food containers? Pizza delivery. Captain Morrison announced with uncontainable joy. 30 minutes or less, or your invasion is free. These babies are loaded with extra cheese, pepperoni, and about 50 megatons of high-explosive warheads. Zorith watched in absolute bewilderment as missiles shaped like flat, circular food containers began slamming into his ships with devastating accuracy. Each impact was followed by what sounded suspiciously like a delivery confirmation chime. "This is insane," Captain Vrex wailed as another pizza-shaped missile turned the starboard battle group into cosmic confetti. "They're using food as weapons." "Actually," Dr. Patel interjected helpfully, "we're using weapons disguised as food." "Big difference. See, your targeting systems keep trying to categorize them as non-threatening nutritional supplies right up until the moment they explode." Admiral Zorith realized with growing dread that humans hadn't just prepared for alien invasion, they had turned it into the galaxy's most twisted form of entertainment. "Sir." Sensor technician Grix's voice carried the kind of panic usually reserved for discovering your spaceship's bathroom is out of order during a month-long voyage. Massive human population movements detected across all major continents. They're evacuating their cities. Admiral Zorith felt a flicker of hope ignite in his rapidly diminishing confidence. Finally, some proper terror. "How many are fleeing in panic?" "All of them, sir." But Grix paused, his tentacles twitching nervously over his instruments. "Sir, they're not fleeing randomly. They're moving in coordinated formations." "Coordinated formations?" Zorith's hope flickered and died like a candle in a hurricane. "What do you mean, coordinated formations?" Captain Vrex, who had been monitoring communications, looked up from his station with an expression that suggested he had just watched his favorite restaurant explode. "Sir, they're not evacuating. They're repositioning. Every civilian transport, cargo hauler, and personal vehicle on the planet is moving towards strategic locations around our scattered fleet positions." Before Zorith could fully process this information, every screen on the bridge was suddenly hijacked by a young human female with short black hair and a smile that could probably power a small space station. "Hello, Kalaxian Empire. Lieutenant Sarah Chen, Earth Communications and Psychological Warfare Division." She waved enthusiastically at the camera. "Hope you don't mind, but we've completely taken over your communication networks. Your security was about as effective as a chocolate teapot." "That's impossible." Communications Officer Blexen shrieked, frantically hammering at his control console. "Our quantum encryption is military grade. It would take centuries to crack." "Oh, it would," Lieutenant Chen nodded agreeably, "if we were trying to crack it properly. But see, we just asked your computers very nicely if they wanted to hear some Earth music. Turns out, artificial intelligence really loves catchy tunes." As if to prove her point, every speaker throughout the Kalaxian fleet suddenly began blasting what could only be described as the most aggressively upbeat human music in existence. "We're no strangers to love. You know the rules, and so do I." The song thundered through the corridors of 9,000 scattered warships, causing mass confusion and several cases of involuntary tentacle dancing. "Make it stop." Admiral Zorith screamed, covering his auditory organs with his secondary tentacles. "Oh, this is just the warm-up." Lieutenant Chen's voice somehow carried over the musical assault. "Wait until you hear our greatest hits compilation. We've got everything from ancient human war chants to something called Baby Shark that our psychological warfare department assures me will cause permanent mental damage." The music shifted to a repetitive tune about a small aquatic creature that made Admiral Zorith question every life choice that had led him to this moment. "Sir," Tactical Officer Vorthak's voice cracked with strain. "The human evacuees aren't evacuating. They're surrounding us. Thousands of civilian vessels approaching from all vectors." Admiral Zorith stared at his tactical display in growing horror. What he had initially interpreted as panicked evacuation was actually the most brilliantly coordinated military maneuver he had ever witnessed. Human civilians in everything from school buses to ice cream trucks were positioning themselves around his scattered, disabled fleet like pieces on a three-dimensional chessboard. "This is Captain Morrison again." The garbage hauler pilot's voice cut through the musical chaos. "Just wanted to let you know, those aren't civilians." "Well, they are civilians, but they're civilians with a really twisted sense of humor and about 40 years' worth of pent-up alien invasion fantasies." "Pent-up what?" Zorith gasped. "You guys picked the wrong species to mess with." Lieutenant Chen added cheerfully. See, humans have been preparing for this scenario in our entertainment media for decades. Movies, books, video games, comic books, we've literally been gaming out alien invasion responses since before most of your crew was hatched. The music suddenly shifted to something with heavy percussion and aggressive guitars that made Zorith's exoskeleton rattle. And now, Lieutenant Chen announced with the enthusiasm of a game show host revealing the grand prize, the hunters become the hunted. Every human on this planet has been waiting their entire lives for this moment. Captain Vrex looked up from his instruments, his scales now a fascinating shade of purple that indicated complete psychological breakdown. Sir, we're not the invasion force anymore. We're the prey. Admiral Zorith realized with crystalline clarity that his species had just stumbled into the galaxy's most elaborate, most enthusiastic, and most absolutely terrifying ambush predator trap ever conceived. All remaining vessels. Emergency retreat protocol. Admiral Zorith's voice cracked across the fleet's compromised communication system, barely audible over what appeared to be a human song about someone named Rick, who would never give you up, let you down, or desert you. Sir, Captain Vrex reported, his voice trembling with the kind of fear usually reserved for discovering your mother-in-law in your personal quarters. We've lost contact with 87% of the fleet. The remaining ships, they're scattered across 3 solar systems. Commander Thex's battered voice crackled through from Battle Group 7. Admiral, this is madness. We're being pursued by a yellow transportation vehicle with small humans visible through transparent panels. They're somehow keeping pace with our quantum drives. School bus. Lieutenant Chen's cheerful voice hijacked their communication again. That's Mrs. Henderson's 3rd grade class on their field trip. They're having the time of their lives. Say hello, kids? A chorus of high-pitched human voices screamed with delight through the speakers. Hi, alien monsters. This is the best field trip ever. Zorith felt his sanity departing faster than his ships. How is a primitive ground transport vehicle operating in deep space? Oh, we made a few modifications. Captain Morrison's voice joined the conversation. Turns out when you strap enough rocket engines to anything, it becomes a spaceship. We've got ice cream trucks, garbage haulers, pizza delivery vehicles, and at least 3 city buses chasing down your battle cruisers. This is Commander Thex. The transmission grew more desperate. I'm being tailed by a vehicle that appears to be dispensing frozen nutritional treats while playing cheerful music. My crew they're actually starting to enjoy the melody. Send help. Actually, Dr. Patel's voice added helpfully, that ice cream truck belongs to Mr. Rodriguez. He's been waiting 30 years for a chance to use his engineering degree. Really went all out with the weapons modifications. The sound of plasma fire and tinkling ice cream truck music filled the communication channel before Commander Thex's transmission cut to static. Sir, Vrex reported with the tone of someone announcing the end of civilization, we've lost Battle Group 7, confirmed destroyed by a mobile frozen dessert distribution unit. Admiral Zorith stared at his tactical display as red icons representing destroyed Kalaxian vessels blinked out one by one, each replaced by cheerful yellow symbols that appeared to be smiling faces wearing various human headgear. Attention fleeing Kalaxian forces. Commander Riley's voice boomed across all frequencies. Thanks for playing Earth's favorite new game show, so you think you can invade. Unfortunately, you've been eliminated. Better luck next galaxy. Sir. Sensor Officer Grix's voice pitched higher than a helium-breathing soprano. Human pursuit vessels are gaining on all retreat vectors. They're using everything from modified commercial aircraft to what appears to be a flying taco truck. How many ships do we have left? Zorith asked, though he suspected he really didn't want to know the answer. 17, sir. Just 17 out of 9,900. The bridge fell silent except for the sound of human music, which had shifted to something about a small aquatic predator and the dangers of swimming alone. Sir, Vrex whispered, should we send a distress signal to the High Command? Admiral Zorith looked around at his decimated fleet, listening to the sounds of human laughter and cheerful taunting filling his communication channels, and realized that some defeats were simply too humiliating to report. Set course for home, he said quietly. "And pray to the 7 moons that no one asks us what happened here." In the distance, a human voice cheerfully announced, "Thanks for visiting Earth. Don't forget to leave us a 5-star review on your way out." 3 weeks later, Admiral Zorith sat in the most uncomfortable chair in the known galaxy, facing the Kalaxian High Command's tribunal of military embarrassment. The 7-headed tribunal stared down at him with the kind of disappointment usually reserved for discovering your offspring has decided to become a philosopher. "So let me understand this correctly." High Commander Zlaxoth's central head spoke while his other 6 heads took notes. "You took 9,900 of our finest warships to conquer a primitive world and came back with 17? Zorith's tentacles drooped in shame. "Yes, Supreme Commander. And you were defeated by, let me check my notes, weaponized food delivery, musical psychological warfare, and a fleet of civilian vehicles driven by small humans on an educational outing?" That's an accurate summary, sir." High Commander Zlaxoth's 7 heads began clicking in perfect synchronization, the Kalaxian equivalent of a migraine. "Admiral, in 3,000 years of galactic conquest, we have never encountered a defeat this comprehensively humiliating. Our military computers are still trying to process how a school bus outmaneuvered a quantum battlecruiser. Sir, if I may," Zorith cleared his throat nervously, "I recommend we immediately reclassify Earth from easy target to avoid at all costs in the Galactic Species Database." "Already done," Zlaxoth sighed, all 7 heads nodding wearily. "We've also issued a galaxy-wide warning to all civilized species. The humans have been marked as deceptively dangerous with a special notation that their warfare tactics are, and I quote the Xenopsychology department here, aggressively illogical to the point of being weaponized insanity." "What's our official report going to say?" Zorith asked, dreading the answer. High Commander Zlaxoth shuffled through his papers with 6 of his 7 heads, while the 7th maintained disappointed eye contact. "The official report will state that Earth's defensive capabilities were significantly underestimated. The unofficial report, which will be distributed to every military academy in the galaxy, will be titled How to Avoid Getting Your Tentacles Handed to You by a Species That Thinks Pizza is a Legitimate Military Strategy." Zorith slumped in his chair. "And my assignment?" All 7 heads smiled in unison, which was somehow more terrifying than their earlier disappointment. "Congratulations, former Admiral Zorith. You're being promoted to Chief Instructor at the Academy. Your new course will be called Humility 101, a case study in overconfidence. And that, fellow beings, is how humanity accidentally became the galaxy's most feared species by being themselves."